his taxes. There, I said it. I don't think Jesus paid his taxes. Now, if you're just clicking on this, you're probably, what is this? What are we watching here? I think I cracked the code. I believe the Romans orchestrated the whole Jesus story for several reasons. I mean, if the people who call themselves the Hebrews had the ability to create a whole different story and create a whole different... It took some ingenuity. Yes, it did. But we cracked that code. They left a lot of sloppy... It was sloppy. It was nasty work. I don't know if they didn't think anybody would like catch on to what was happening later on, but it was nasty. It's nasty work. New Testament, though. New Testament. That was creativity. That to this day, that is creative. I'm talking about some genius work. Some genius work. Unfortunately. Okay, Andy, what's good, man? Unfortunately, as I will be explaining, and I started this yesterday, we have to do part 2 and get it out the way because I want to talk about so much stuff that's going on present day. But I feel like, how dare you? It's one thing to create a religion and then give someone the option. It's something totally different to create a false religion, a false god, and then kill everyone in the name of this religion and force them to become. And these things happened. And I'm not doing this to trigger anybody because no one has to watch this episode. I'm doing this for the Poker Face Society. And not every member has to watch this, right? There's people that are seeking the truth, and I'm gonna be confident in saying what they've given you is not the truth. Now, let's see here. I think we stopped here yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. We stopped somewhere around here. Oh yeah, Nero and the Great. And this is why they're so good. Oh my God, these guys work together. But if you notice, it's only Romans that ever kept up this story. Like it was only them. It was only them who started this. It was only them who kept the facade up for a while. But when I point out the genius work, right? They were actually thinking ahead. Like, how can we fix this? And I'm gonna go over everything that I'm talking over right now because I'm talking fast, right? So they were trying to fix things and band-aid things where they might have seen they made mistakes, and then they created new characters, in my opinion. But when I say they created new characters, in my opinion, I'm saying that because nobody else could prove me wrong that they didn't create. You can't just... Let's take Marcion. No one knows it. We'll get to it. But there's no work of Marcion. There's no work of Marcion. There's only some political / historians, some political people, part-time historians that write books, and then they mention and say, yo, Marcion messed up. He's these religious figures, and say, yo, he's the one that messed up the Gospels. When he came in and he started editing the Pauline letters. Whoa. Who is this guy? There's no work of him. He's not even He wasn't even born a Roman. He was born in Turkey, as the story goes. So I said, oh, damn, they are genius. Of course, they would choose a character and say his father's a bishop. We'll get into it. A bishop of what? There was no Orthodox church when this so-called Marcion. There was no Orthodox church. But they throw these words around, and the more you listen to these apologists, the more you listen to these polished up rhetoric masters on YouTube without doing any type of research. Listen, I research even the people that I do like. I like Paul Wallace in The Fifth Kind. I'm going to be honest with you. I done caught Paul Wallace out there exaggerating the truth to make it seem, make it seem more credible. I research everything I hear from these people. I just don't take blindly what these people are saying. I hear it in the video, I take notes, just like Uncle Andy do with me. I take notes, and then I go. Now, to be fair, out of 100, I've only found like 1-2% of the things, maybe 2% of the things that Paul Wallace said that it wasn't a complete lie. It was a stretch. It was a stretch, and I said, all right, that was you extended that a little bit. But that's not what the Romans did, and that's not what these biblical scholars of today do. They use certain keywords that would have you thinking that right after the time of the alleged death of one Jesus Christos, the New Testament went right into effect. Have you ever? Of course you haven't, right? Because people are so emotional about their religion. Because let's be honest, when you down and out, it's like when you don't got nothing else, sometimes religion will help you out. And that's why I don't like giving I wish that not everybody could listen to my message, right? But this message needs to get out there. It's only for a chosen few though. So I wouldn't even care if only, like the other night, I did part 1 and only 4 people was in there. And guess what? I was happy as a pig in mud because now whoever clicks on it, that means you wanted to see this. You wanted to hear what you about to hear. You wanted to learn what you were about to learn. I'm not mad at you, but I don't want to expose you to the light by mistake. And then you're like, wait a minute, Santa's not real? Oh. Nah, Santa's not real. The rabbit's not real. Yahweh is a farce. And allegedly, Jesus was made up by the Romans for political reasons. Damn, that hurt. That one hurt. Not Jesus, my man. We lost another one. A real one. A real one. But it doesn't mean, look, we're going to get into all of this. I'm just giving you ahead of time why the Romans made it up. They had to get people to become more submissive. Simple and plain. And they wasn't going to beat them the other way. They hadn't been beating them the other way. We're going to get on into it. They hadn't been beating them the other way. What was the other way? Catching them, torture, war, all of that. No, they wasn't beating them. So they thought of a psyop. Oh, yo, crazy. Who would have thought it would have been one of the biggest psyops of our dispensation, because who knows? This earth has been here. I'm gonna give you the general consensus. I think longer, but let's just go with 4.5 billion years. That's still a lot of years. So we really don't know that much history. We know we could go back like 200,000 years. And out of that 200,000 years that we could go back, we only focus on the sweet spot is like 5,000 years. So let's do that math again. The Earth is 4.5 billion years. We can actually go back 200,000 years, and yet we focus somewhere on about 5,000 years. We're primitive people. How much do we know? Like, let's just be honest today. Let's just be honest today. We got Uncle Andy in the building. It's good. It's 6 people over here. We'll keep it just like that. Just like that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's do that. Because apparently, if I'm not, this is what I say, if I'm not talking about division and all this other stuff and adding to the problem, they're not going to give me no views. And trust me, I wanted to today. I wanted to so bad. But we got time. We could do that Wednesday. Let's do that Wednesday. Because I got a special guest coming tomorrow. All right. So, yesterday, on part 1, we stopped somewhere around here, so I'm going to continue right here. Now, what happened right around here? Right here, there was a emperor named Nero. He was young when he became emperor. He was under the guidance of his mom, of some other philosophical teachers, Seneca. But I knew before I even finished reading the story that he was going to kill his mom. I don't know why I knew that. I just knew. I just felt like he was going to want his freedom. Now, the funny thing is, it sounded like his mom had murdered her husband so that Nero could secure that spot. But I don't know if what they say is true. What goes around comes around. Any old way, Nero killed her. He wanted to be... Listen, I don't want to lie on this man's lifestyle. I don't know if he was homosexual or not. I'm just reading how much he was into... And nothing... I can't really make no judgment on that. But I'm just looking at... He wanted to have a good time. He was just out here. He wanted to be, He wanted to act. He wanted to be in theater. They say he burnt down. They said this man burnt down the city trying to so he could put up a new palace. I believe it. I believe it. Now, the people who wrote about this, and this is where I started to focus in on, right? And guess what? These stories would be so much better if people like me were never born. Right? Because I don't know what make my brain work. I'm keeping it real with you. I assume everyone's brain work like this. Where you just questioning the question. Now, some people used to tell me, well, basically, I'm a paraphrase. They used to tell me, don't ask all these questions because you're not smarter than God and all of this other stuff, yo. I don't appreciate answers like that now. Right? I don't think I appreciated them then. Really, you just don't know the answer. Just say that. Just say you don't know the answer. Don't be telling me God may not want me to know that, and we don't question God and all of this other stuff right here. You leave that for your life. Don't. If I want to answer, I want to answer, bro. Nero was reportedly to later allegedly blame this fire that he created on Christians, but by who? And when I say by who said that Nero? Who said that Nero blamed this fire on Christians? That's asking questions like this is going to get you the answer that we're going to get to today. Remember when they used to tell you there's no stupid questions? Turns out I don't think there are stupid questions. Maybe questions at bad times, but ask them at the right time and you might be onto something. Nero said, allegedly, we don't know. I don't believe this. But according to one of the authors 52 years later, he is projecting the fact that, hey, Nero had blamed the Christians for that. It sounds like barbershop talk. And I'm going to go over why. But he said, and then Nero ordered the mass persecution of all the Christians during that time. Now, that is a bold claim. But what does it do? It solidifies that, hey, Christians existed during this time. How do we know that? Because the Bible say that. Then you say, well, outside. Of course the Bible's going to say that. Duh. Why wouldn't the Bible say that? How do we know that outside of the Bible that Christians existed? And you said, well, they even wrote about it. You got other authors that wrote about this. Tacitus, he wrote about this. When did he write about this? 116. He wrote about it in a book. And he elaborated on the Christian? No, but he said Nero blamed the Christians. Turns out he did not use Christians. He used the word Christus, which, let's keep it real. If someone was to assume that he's talking about Christians, we would say that's fair. Why? Because Christus is very close to Christ, Christos, Christians. We're gonna probably give it to him. So I'm not here to get that granular with the cherry picking, because I don't think I need it to win this argument. I just want you to know it never said Christians. That may mean something to you, and then that may mean nothing to you, right? Just say you're an apologist and you're like, well, obviously he means Christians. Arrogant ass apologists that it's obvious. Nothing's obvious. Calm down. I will burst your bubble today. Easy on the Pepsi fuller. Easy. Obviously he's talking about the Christians. Is it? Let me see if I can find the actual quote. Here we go. Theologians and biblical scholars see the Tacitus clearly connecting Christus with the origin of the Christian sect. Did I have the quote here? The quote went something like that Christus was executed, and that's the quote right there. He wrote that Christus was executed under Pontius Pilate. Why nobody else wrote about this? We're going to get into it. I'm taking my time today. I want to take my time. I know what the apologist would say. Of course, this is chess, not checkers. Think I'm not? You think I came here to play around with any apologists? I did not. Because they play dirty. So you got to think like a foul person. How would they play? You know why they play dirty? Because they know they lost already. So any information that they could get on their side, they going to grab it and try to use it. Guess what? I did the same thing, foolio, before you did it. Because I don't like to argue. So I said, why nobody else spoke about it? You say, you don't know, but other people did. The Romans were meticulous record keepers. However, in all their record keeping, Jesus is absent. No Roman governor, tax roll, or military report mentions him. That's crazy talk. This man was invented, I'm telling you. And guess what? I didn't get anywhere yet. So if you think this is the meat and potatoes of my evidence, do not play yourself. I would never come to a gunfight with toothpicks. Hello. Do not play yourself. I'm just giving you obvious things to consider. Hoping like, you catch that? Does that mean anything to you? No Jewish historian of the time, Philo of Alexandria, who wrote about Judea under Pilate, mentions him. Does that not mean anything to you? Listen, I know how emotional you're gonna be. This is why I say don't even come over here. Because I'm going to continue to make a whole lot of sense. I just started making sense. And to lose something you've probably been attached to your whole life is going to hurt. Especially when you've been giving him the credit for everything. Oh. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Especially when you've been giving him the credit for everything. Now I know what you're thinking. Don't play with the Lord. He's not my Lord. So easy on the Pepsi filler. When you break down his name, it means Yahweh saves. Not Jesus. I don't know what they say Jesus means. But Yahushua. When you break it down, Yahweh saves. Yahweh is a farce. Yahweh is a farce. So we're doing double bad on this book. And guess what? Where's my book? Guess what? I still have not abandoned my book. Because I love the jewelry. I love the values that's actually in here. Not all of them. All of that, turn the other cheek. If you get smacked and slave, obey your masters. This is why they wrote it. They wrote it to. I just told you they created Jesus to be more submissive. So that we're going to get into the story. And God damn, it worked. Whoa. Who was Tacitus? Well, what was his testimony? Here was the testimony. It says, Christus, the namesake of the sect, suffered the extreme penalty under Pontius Pilate. in Tiberius' reign. So again, his focus is on the word Christus, which right away when I read this, I said that could actually mean a person, an individual. That could be an individual named Christus. Christus suffered the extreme penalty under Pontius Pilate in Tiberius' reign. You know what this Tacitus never did? Which you and I would probably expect. He never goes on to say, and we all know that the Christians had a crazy power at that time. Right? After the death of their leader 20-something years ago. 30-something years ago. After the death of their leader, they the ones who did this to get paper. That wasn't the case. So for him to write this in 116, when that fire allegedly took place in 64, then that tells me, oh, you're trying to backdate Christianity. Y'all thinking. Y'all on your feet. You trying to give Christianity some validity. Somebody's trying to give Christianity some validity somewhere to try to place them in history when no historians place them in history. Nobody else, just them. But, however, they don't even know what to say about the Christians. Now that's one person. Let's go to Suetonius. Suetonius writes, punishments was inflicted on the Christians, a class of men given to a new mischievous superstition. I don't think Suetonius knew what he was talking about. I think he was being groomed and taught maybe some history by, who knows, Tacitus. Now, this time when he says this, though, he doesn't really, it has nothing to do with the fire. He's just saying punishment was inflicted on the Christians. A class of men given to a new and mischievous superstition. Woo. These sound like Gnostics to me. And let me just ask you something. If a dude was running around healing folk, walking on water, raising the dead, bro, do you think that his followers, like, even if he died, do you think they're going to talk about his followers like this? Let's take I want to probably take, and I might be trying to overstep a boundary here, but I'm only trying to make a point. Let's take the whitest person you know. I'm talking about the whitest person you know. Right? And they don't know much about much. But they do know that there's Bloods and Crips somewhere. They don't know much about these Bloods and Crips. They heard of them. They know they wear colors. And that's like the extent. But then, out of all the people They may not know a lot of people, but you say Suge Knight, and they might know that name. They say I don't know no Suge Knight. What about Snoop Dogg? Yeah, I know Snoop Dogg. They know Snoop Dogg. They know he's a gangbanger. Well, everybody knows Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg is famous. And they know this Snoop Dogg is connected to gang leaders. My point is, they're going to have more to say about, they would give you a better description. Just being able to point out maybe a leader or somebody. Because no matter how we take it, that gang culture is a phenomenon. A bad phenomenon, but a phenomenon that affects North America. At this point, it affects all over the world, which is crazy. There's Bloods and Crips all over the world. That's nuts. I went to Central America. There was gangs down there, Bloods and Crips. It was nuts. And my point is this. 50 years later, the people that followed this dude that was turning 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread enough to feed thousands, raising the dead. I'm talking about, he was so famous in this story that one person said, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. He was so famous in the story that one person said, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed. And the person was healed. That's in the story, though. That's in here. You got to read it. It's fast. This is a fascinating book. It has everything that you probably want in a story. Sex. Some of it is a little bit too crazy. I don't even know if it's legal. I'm pretty sure it's not legal. Whatever was going on in here. UFOs. Aliens. It's crazy. But yeah. The dude was so famous. Jesus was so famous that if you touch the hem of it, that's only in here though, because apparently, in the real world, they never heard of this dude. This dude ain't pay no taxes, and they don't know who his people is. They called him a new and mischievous superstition. Well, goddamn. What? Mischievous? Mischievous? Are we talking about the same Christians, man? Well, yeah, they run around. You think? I don't know, bro. I just don't see the disciples running around saying, hold up. That would be crazy. If Jesus fell off the earth, face of the map, they ain't know what to do, so they just started fucking slumming around, bullshitting, got into some arson. They out here doing arson hits for the Lolo. They out here pulling this insurance scams for the low. Have y'all not learned nothing? Y'all had the Messiah with you, blood. He taught you all of that, and y'all revert right back to fucking pity pat scams, 3-card Monty, and setting fires for a little bit of change. You out here doing something strange for some change. Well, goddamn. Let us move on. Now, I did put some focus on these two cats because I wanted to know the way my mind think. I think I would be a good detective. And it's too late now. They say never say never. I'm saying never. Because you got to start as a beat cop. And they called me back to be a cop. But my wife didn't want me to do it because my beat would have been in Brooklyn. And she said no. So I had two other choices. The DMV had called me back at the time. It was like, you could come, you pass the test. Let us know if you want to accept this position, starting at $40,000. And everybody at the DMV just looked so miserable. And then I was like, well, you went to school for IT, baby. Let's see how this IT thing gonna work out. And then I went in that direction there. But getting back to these two cats, being that they was the ones to write about Nero, the only two that I ever heard mention Christians attached to Nero. 50-something years after the fire, 80-something years after the alleged death of Jesus the Christ. Yet they didn't mention Jesus the Christ, which is strange. But I said, who is these cats, man? And it turns out they are politically affiliated, which makes a lot of sense because the people who actually created this whole narrative about Jesus were all politically affiliated. They were all aristocrats and politicians, all of them. And I'm going to assume, and I'm going to tell you who they were. Don't worry about that. I'm going to assume they did this because, like I told you, the brutes tried their way. The military tried their way. And actually, y'all making shit worse. But y'all not thinkers. Y'all killers. But y'all not thinkers like these, like the aristocrats. Right? Every Roman gay poet / politician who play with little boys thinks he's some type of chess master. You have to think, darling. You have to use your mind. You will not beat them like that. Turns out you did not beat Turns out you did not beat them at all. They are out here cutting ass in Israel as we speak. Over there committing genocide. You didn't beat these motherfuckers at all. However, not every time something you think you creating something is going to be for that. You know how many medicines got licensed and it was for a particular thing and then later on it had to be repurposed? They found something out when they created this Christianity, right? Maybe we cannot control these people from Judea. But apparently we can control everybody else if we force them by murder, which is what happened. We'll get to that later. Anyway, this Tacitus was considered one of Rome's greatest historians. One of Rome's greatest historians. I'm going to repeat that. He was considered one of Rome's greatest historians. Do you know this historian never wrote about Jesus? That's crazy, Lord. That's crazy. Roman senator, orator, and historian. Suetonius was a Roman equestrian. He was a lower aristocrat. served as the secretary in charge of imperial correspondence under the Emperor Hadrian. They said he was more gossipy and full of scandal stories. I believe it. This is why when I look at him and he says what he says, well, you know, Nero persecuted the Christians. First of all, my boy, you don't even know who the fuck the Christians was like that. You called them mischievous superstition, a movement. So you sound like a gossiper. You a chatty patty. You didn't really know of them. You repeating some shit that you done heard. Which is good for me. Because if you did have any evidence, you would have said what it was. You would have said, if you knew anything about Christians like that, you would have said it in your book. But you didn't. Stop the cap. We're going to get into these Pauline letters. I can't wait till my guest comes on the show. He's written a book. Shh. I don't want to say too much. You got haters out here. Haters going to hate. But don't worry. But what I will say, as I'm listening to all of these scholars and these people that's going for their dissertation and their PhD, writing dissertations. Their rhetoric sounds so believable. And you know what hurts? When you just go to just check and see how sturdy their evidence is, it just fall to pieces right in your hand. You're like, whoa, damn, that sounded crazy when you was talking about the Mark. See, the Mark, the letters of Mark, they have this on this side, and biblical scholars can date it back to... Shut up, bro. Shut up, bro. Shut up. Don't worry. We're going to get into it. But I just want to start off with saying Jesus must not have been that important. Why would we make him more important today if he wasn't important then? Not that he existed. Because there's no way in the world I'm going to believe a man of that type of... The way you described him, no way in the world they not respecting this man's ability. That's wild. Only in a book. A religious book. Created by who? Romans only. Just Romans is validated. All of this is only validated by Romans. Nobody else. Nobody else. Just Romans. And we will get to Josephus. If that's in the back of your head, like, hold up. Josephus was a sellout. And we'll get to that in a second. Nero sends Vespasian to Judea. Background. There was growing unrest in Judea around 66 AD. But to understand the growing unrest, you would have to go watch part 1, which we did last night. I'm not going over that. Go watch part 1. I didn't make it members only yet. I will. But I didn't make it members only yet. And the reason I didn't is because I want you to go watch it. Then you will see. And I purposely started 500 BC or something like that. Purposely. And I came up just so that you could gotta get an idea of the torment and the ups and downs that these people went through. The people from Judea. Right? So we went through the Maccabee revolt, Hasmonean dynasty. We went through all of that part 1. Now we on part 2. For decades, Judea had been simmering under Roman taxation. We went from the exchange to from Greek rule to Roman rule. There was some slight differences. There was moments of peace, and then when one emperor would die or one overseer would die, somebody would come in with their BS, and then they would make things worse, right? So some of the things that were worse was the taxation, corrupt governors. The Romans, they had something called procurators, but that's really like a governor, right? And when this one procurator, if that's how you say it, Gesius Florus, seized temple funds in Jerusalem, well, that was going to kick off something. I don't know why it wouldn't. I mean, I don't know what you wanted after that. You seizing temple funds? From my understanding, they had shared the temple was not built for them, but after Harold had passed away, which was a client king, the new overseers, they had made it, they had, what's the word I want to, overstepped, right? Because it was a lavish temple, and they wanted to use the temple for their gods too. They wanted to share it, but then they kept on overstepping. They wanted the Jews to basically do Roman stuff. Sacrifice to their Roman gods and all this type of stuff. Jewish rebels expelled the Roman garrison, igniting the first Jewish revolt, 66 to 73 CE. Nero was going through some other stuff at this time because there was some other people caught in a scandal that was trying to like bring him down. So he had a lot going on his plate, but he didn't really know who to trust, but he had some trusted generals. And one was Vespasian. Vespasian had a son called Titus. So it was really Vespasian and Titus. And he sent them to the region to take care of that. Yo, go handle my light work. Please go figure this out. '67, Vespasian begins the conquest in Galilee, systematically crushing the resistance. And here's your loving Josephus. Josephus, man. Josephus is a piece of work. A real piece of work. Now, I often tell people that Josephus was a Sicarii. I don't know. I've read books that he was a Sicarii. But whether you think he was a Sicarii, which is more of a like an assassination group. So Sicarii, is like the Navy SEALs. But we all know that the Navy SEALs is in the Marines. It's just a different faction within the Marines. Either way, Josephus was in the military, and he was a commander. So he may not have been a Sicarii, but he was definitely in the Marines. He was there. Boots on the ground. But I think he was a Sicarii. It don't matter, because he was a commander, and they killed all the men. I think it was 69. He was the 70th, and they kept him alive. And I don't know if you need me to lay it out any more plainly. They kept him alive, and the next thing you know, he's living lavishly in Rome. And the next thing you know, he's giving a job to write history. How does that happen? I'm going to go to the chat while you figure out a way to answer me. How does that happen? How do you go from a Sakari, which is an assassin, a Hebrew assassin? I'm talking about nice with your hands, nice with the knife, all that. You went from that to you writing poetry? Oh, Josephus. You are one of the wildest people in history, bro. Josephus is one of the... All right, here we go. We got Joshua. Says Jesus is coming back. I heard about the rapture. You can find anything on the internet. You can find anything on YouTube. I opened up my YouTube this morning. They said Jesus will be back in 5 weeks. I said, God damn. Never underestimate. Black people always in the know. Black people always got the tea. 5 weeks, huh? Well, the big question is you ready? Like, never mind the bullshit. Are you ready for his return? Right? Never mind over here trying to convince me he's coming back. Are you ready for his return? We got Pretty Divine in the house. Salute to Pretty Divine. We got Joey. We'll get to you in a second, Joey Biden. Somebody shouted out the original man. Is the original man in the house? Oh, original man is in the house. Original man is in the building. He says, peace to the gods. Let's talk about it. Well, you know we gonna do that. Original man. Shout out to Joey Biden. Came in real quick just to let me know. God wrote which God, sir? Which God? Shout it out. We got Huey in the house. Let's get back to you real quick, Joey. Joey says, God wrote the New Testament through our Through our disciples. The Old Testament was written by malevolent demiurge. The Old Testament was written by confused people who just was traumatized from being from going from place to place and hearing all these stories. That's who the Old Testament was written by. Hold on, Joey. Hold on. Let me close my door. Thank you, babe. I can't be offending my wife with my rhetoric. That's my babes. But she is a Christian. Christ is Lord for sure. Yo, I'm going to keep it real with you, Joey. I'm not here to argue with you. I cannot tell you your Christ is not your Lord for sure. I can't do that in good faith and no faith. I can tell you that Yahushua, which is Jesus' name before they renamed him Jesus, means Yahweh saves. And I know Yahweh is a farce. So I'm just here to give you some insight about how the Bible was written. Now, you can stand tall on what you don't know, because you can't just, Joey, you can't just be like, God wrote the New Testament. No, he didn't, bro. Who? Who's God? Caesar? Who is God? That is a crazy... That is it. We don't agree, Joey. I disrespect your belief system. We don't agree. You are not hearing the words that came out my mouth. God didn't write the Bible. Man wrote it. That's evident. If we did a worldly vote and said, who do you think wrote the Bible, you would probably win, because so many people are going to give that same answer, right? And I'm like, no, physically wrote the Bible, right? Took this, like, wrote the words. Who wrote the words? Put them down. I don't want to hear who he was inspired by, because you get a lot of that, right? You're like, no, it was inspired by God. Can I get a straight answer, bro? Let's get back to this. No doubt, Joey. No doubt. All right, let's get back to this. All right, 67, right? Vespasian is sent to Galilee to cool things down. He's doing his 1-2, what he was sent to do as a Roman strong arm. And they captured Josephus, who later ends up writing history for the Romans. What am I telling you? Why do I keep repeating that? I'm repeating that because later on people will try to use Josephus's words. I'm telling you Josephus was compromised. So if you're taking notes like Uncle Andy, so far you know who has mentioned the Christians, and you know how they have mentioned the Christians. I'm not going down this timeline for no reason. I'm not up here to spew barbershop talk to you. I'm not up here to be in a debate with other people that's not doing any type of scholarly studying on the history around that time to really see if this story is true. We know that believers exist and we respect the believers. This is not a show for the believers. This is a show for people who have questions whether this is valid or not. Now you're talking to somebody who loves this book, because I do. And it's a farce. It's a farce. It is a farce. Now, when I say it's a farce, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, because I did not throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can read this book, and it's going to save your life. Why? Because there's wisdoms and principles in here. So don't get crazy now, right? Don't get crazy and you not going to read the Bible. No, it's instructions in the book that will save your life. Most of those instructions was taken from other cultures. Book of the Walk, the Book of the Dead, other civilizations. So there's a bunch of good stuff in here. Even the parables. There's so much good stuff in here. But the characters, Yahweh. For all I know, Yahweh might be El. We might get into that another time. And not El, Enlil. For all I know, Yahweh may be Enlil, because I think Yahweh is Enlil. But we ain't talking about the Old Testament. What we do know is Yahweh is a farce, and what we about to find out is Jesus was made up. Point blank. 68. Vespasian pushes into Judea, but pauses when news arrives that Nero has committed suicide and civil war breaks out in Rome. All right, here's the pivotal part. When Vespasian, which is Titus's father, goes back to Rome, who does he leave in charge? Now, let me also take this time to say this is my theory. I have borrowed some thinking points from Joseph Atwill, and I have borrowed some thinking points from Abelard, But what I have done is I have combined their theories. And this is only a theory. At least I'll be truthful enough to tell you that. Right? But so is the Bible. What is not theory are the missing holes that I'm going to show you and that I have shown you so far. None of those are theory. But what I'm about to tell you right now is my theory. But there's a lot of missing history. And we'll get into that later. So here we go with my theory. My theory is that when Vespasian left to go back to Rome and he left his son Titus in charge, 69, the year of the 4 emperors, Vespasian is proclaimed emperor by his troops. He leaves Judea in the hands of his son Titus, and he returns to Rome. I think that Titus might have been approached. I don't know how this went down, but Titus gets in his head there may be a better way to take these brigands down, because they don't appear to be persuaded by violence because of the Sicarii, right? The Sicarii was like ninjas, right? It was brigands. Josephus did, you know the bad part about Josephus? He did write about this. He wrote some things, but you have to discern what may be true, and you have to rightfully divide what Josephus wrote about. Because again, here's a Sicarii commander living under Roman luxury. How can I really trust any history you write, bro? But he wrote it, and I think he embellished more a little bit for Rome. If he made up everything, that would be crazy. that would be nuts. I don't know. I'm not going to give him that. He could have made up everything. But I'm going to say he just more embellished a little bit for the Romans, right? That's why they got him around. Make us look good. Make us look good to your people. And maybe you can help us work on this project that we've been talking about. Us, military and politicians and aristocrats in the background. Right? Now I say here, let's take a break to introduce some Roman characters. Those other characters I'm about to put you on to. Lucius Calpurnius Piso. This was the father. He was a senior member of the family, consul in 27 CE under the Emperor Tiberius. Early 1st century CE, spanning the reigns of Tiberius and Caligula. Known as a literary patron, part of the cultured aristocrat circles that valued what? Poetry, rhetoric, history. Served as consul and later governor. His steady career reflected the Piso's family's deep integration into Rome's governing elite. Now he had a son, and I think his son was he was the one. He was the one. I'm gonna keep it. This is just my theory. I could be dead wrong. Even if I'm wrong, what I'm not wrong about is the stuff I haven't even talked about yet, which is the holes all through the 1st and 2nd century. There's too many holes. I'm just talking about how do we get to this character. I'm very confident on those holes in within history. And some I've showed you already, and some I'm about to show you. But how did we get to the character of Jesus? Because from what we know, y'all keep telling me there's a bunch of Roman historians, and not one Roman historian wrote about Jesus the Christo. And yet, you got people in my chat right now who is standing on business saying this is their Lord and Savior. But this man did not exist according to worldly history during this time. He did not exist. So what happened? How, Jamel? How did he get into history? Aha! That's what I'm asking you. Now, there was a guy named Gaius Calpurnius Piso. And I want you to tune in tomorrow. Make sure you got me on alert, because what I'm going to do is I got the authors coming. Matter of fact, let's do this. Let's set it up for Wednesday. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Let's set it up for Wednesday morning. I got some scholars coming through. I haven't talked to them yet about this. So this is my theory. If they watch my show, they could say they could either strengthen it or punch holes in it. This is my theory. Gaius Calpurnius Piso, who he was, a wealthy Roman senator. All right. Politician. What's his motive? Well, we don't want division. Like, we really just want people to pay their taxes so that everything could go back the way it was, and we can continue getting this money behind the scenes, right? Central figure of the Pisonian conspiracy against Nero. Remember when I told you Nero was going through his own he was going through his own situation? Yeah, they had found out some people was conspiring against him, bro. And Nero had to put down the poison. He was like, yo, some of y'all gonna drink some poison and kill yourself. But yet, still, I think that this Piso family had been working on something, and not by themselves. Not by themselves. I think they came up with an idea, and it was like, this is a good way to take these Jews down, because you're never going to get them to admit that Caesar is Lord. And that's what Caesar was trying to get them to do, according to Josephus. Josephus said they was trying to get them to admit that the Romans were trying to get these brigands, Sicarii, to admit that Caesar is Lord, and they wouldn't do it, according to Josephus. Now, they are way better than me, right? Because I thought about all the things that you could probably do to get me to admit that Caesar is Lord, right? If you put those clippers that you do with the weed, like with the bushes, just put that up to my genitals, and I'm probably like, Caesar is Lord. Caesar is Lord. God, chill. You are wilding, right? But not these people. They was taking pain and never was admitting that Caesar was Lord. All in the name of a farce. Yahweh. Crazy work. This whole thing is crazy work. So what do you do when you can't beat submission into somebody? Well, you got to run a psyop. You got to run a psyop at this point. And I do believe that they said, here's the thing. I'm going to get into it. But there was some prophecies made by Isaiah. And here's the crazy part, man. Let's see if I can jump down to that part real quick. Isaiah 7:14. I don't have my reading glasses, but Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. I think Josephus was important because, for one, these people would have to understand more about the religion of Judaism in the tribe of Judah. They would have to understand. And there were certain prophecies. They could have read it themselves. Right? I mean, it was written in Greek. It was written in Greek since 3 BCE. So they could have read it themselves. They read Greek. Trust me, they read Greek. But I don't think it hurt to have somebody that was so close, a Sakari commander himself, here to let us know. I mean, if you Sakari, you should know what your Bible say, your Torah says. You know how many times I've heard that verse growing up? Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. You know how many church plays I had to listen to people that can't sing Emmanuel. We don't know what we're talking about, right? This is why I cannot argue with people that do not study. If you just move off emotion, I'm just gonna be like, "Where you right, bro? You right." What can I tell you? You don't want to hear me. You've never picked up a book. You've never did the etymology of certain words and found out that. First of all, you probably couldn't. But we live in the age of 2025, where if you stop looking up stupid shit, you could, you could probably just get the answers. Don't make me seem like some genius because I'm using the same goddamn internet that you have access to like find out some things, man. Turns out that the Hebrew Bible never said virgin at all. How do you like those apples? How do you like that apple right there? Stick that apple somewhere, anywhere. Huh? People keep telling me who wrote the Bible. You don't know who wrote. You don't. There's other people that do because they did the research. Right? But if God wrote the Bible, why would it have so many mistakes and edits? On God. On God. If God wrote the Bible, like if my God, if your God is incompetent, these are the facts. I know who your God is. Your God is Yahweh. Incompetent. If my God wrote the Bible, I can assure you there would not have been all of these edits and there's no way. No. If you're thinking, oh, your God is Satan, why would my God be Satan? What are you talking about? No. Just in case that stupid thought popped in your head for a second. Do you know that verse never said that girl was a Bible? That verse never said that girl was a virgin? Let's go to the chat. It's time to go to the chat. It is time to go to the chat and see what the hell is going on in the chat. GM98E. No, Moses is. So I give you a hint, GM. First of all, Moses is a Egyptian name, and second of all, no, that story is made up. And here's one good for you, GM9. Moses' story starts off with the king of Sargon's story. Yep. Go read King of Sargon, right? And then go read the story of Moses, and then figure out who came first, the chicken or the egg, right? If Sargon is thousands of years before Moses, who stole from who? Volkadokovich says you could be deceived by Satan to take you away from worshiping God to worship a human instead. Who's God, Volk? Let's start there. I can have multiple conversations, but I definitely want to conversate with you. Who is God, good sir? When you say let's not focus on Satan right now. You said you could be deceived by Satan to take you away from worshiping God. Who's God? What's his name? What's his name? Topher's back. Topher, what are you doing? Topher, don't make... Yo. Yo. Did not kick Topher out of here last week. Topher, don't make me use the kick out button, bro. Topher, I love you, bro. But do not make me do it. Don't make me do it. I kicked you out last week. We talked about this. Your walk with God is important to me. I have no idea why you over here listening to my teachings and this knowledge. This knowledge is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I'm not doing this video for views. This video is for a small group of people. and Tafa is not invited. So if I see you comment again, Tafa, I'm going to tell my people to clap you and get you up out of here and ban you for 24 hours until we talking about something that we can all talk about. Because one thing I don't want to do is poison my religious people who actually need the strength of worshiping something in their life. If that makes sense. Some people need the strength of worshiping their God to carry on. And I can't hold that on my heart that you was over here listening to me. You woke up acting funny towards your girl, your wife, or your kids or something like that because you don't heard a broadcast from me. No, bro. No, this ain't for everybody, bro. Get out of here. Get out of here and go listen to Joel Osteen or something. Not today, bro. Not today. We're going to be back on some. Yeah. You see Tafa hanging around, sniffing around here? Get him out of here. Call his pastor. Tell him he's up to no good. He's over here listening to heathens on YouTube. This ain't that girl, Ray. You understand? This ain't that girl. This that boy, Ray. Have you out here denouncing yet? Nah, I can't do it. I can't do it. So please, and I don't go just for Tafa. All you other curious Christians, I need you to get out of here, bro. This show ain't for you. All right, here we go, Volk. Volk, this is my last question, then I got to get back to teaching. Volk says, does it really matter? God is God. That's not true. Volk, that is not true, bro. What are you talking about, God is God? That's not true. All right, when you'll face something really, really hard, terrible, you try to find a refuge in Him. Yes, this is why I'm saying certain people don't belong over here. As someone said, there's no atheist on a falling plane. I don't know about that. When it's your time, it's your time. I don't believe in heaven or hell. Volk, I don't believe in the heaven or hell. So when I give my glory to my God, because I don't know who your God is, it's not because I fear going to hell. And it's not because I want to go to heaven one day. Neither one. Now, there are different gods. There's been good. The Christians have their God have a name, Volk. Their God has a name. Just like every other religion, their gods have names. So that's why I asked, who's your God? I got to go back to teaching, but I'm going to leave you with this. You do know that the temperament of God in the Old Testament is way different than the temperament of Jesus, right? And why do you think that? Topher, man, you making me Topher. I gotta kick you out of here for 24 hours, bro. You would not leave, bro. You tag, bro. You in a timeout, Topher. 24 hours, baby. See you tomorrow. You're done here. You're done. You have to. I'm trying to save you, bro. Your pastor would not want you over here listening to this rhetoric, and you know that. I don't know why you over here listening to me spew this here. All right, so let's get back to this. Volk, I get back with you on the next break. Don't go nowhere. All right, now, turns out this is not the only mistranslation. This is not the only mistranslation, but it is a big one, right? Because when you go to Isaiah 7:14, and they prophesy that, behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel. Guess who the Christians said was that virgin? Mary. And guess who they say her son was? Which his name is not Emmanuel. Yeah, this whole story is out of control. This whole story is out of control. His name was not Emmanuel at all. What is Emmanuel? God's with us or something like that? Yeah. That's not what Yeshua means. That's not what Yeshua means. Yeshua means Yahweh saves. Yahweh didn't exist before 1300. Nowhere in any of your books are you going to find Yahweh. Nowhere in any inscription, on any wall, on any nothing are you going to find Yahweh before 1300. Yahweh is a farce. But if you about to make up a character and then connect him to the old God, the best thing you could probably do is connect him somehow through the name. I told you in the beginning, these people was on it, Jack. They was thinking. But then they had to keep up the rules, and they was trying. But I just wanted you to point out, don't worry, that's not the only hole that we're going to find in this whole situation. I just mentioned that. You could go, matter of fact, you go look it up yourself. Don't take anything I say. I could be lying to you up here. I could be lying to you. And that's exactly what the text said. That a virgin was, but here's the thing. Hebrew already had a word for virgin. Hebrew had a specific word for virgin, and it was Betula. But that is not what was written in the Hebrew Bible. But you wouldn't know that. Why? Because you never had a Hebrew Bible. You never had access to a Hebrew Bible. So before you get on here arguing with me about how God wrote the Bible, yo, why don't you bring it down 12 notches, come back to the real world, right? You don't even know what the trauma. Obviously, you don't even know the story of the Jews, because you would understand the trauma that they was in captivity most of their existence. In their own story that they in their own history, they was under captivity for hundreds of years. Then just after that, it just went off into dysphoria. It's a crazy, sad story, right? They came from nowhere. They actually did not come from nowhere. They came from Ur of the Chaldees. To this day, I don't know how that makes you Hebrew. Neither do they, though. So it don't really matter. And then the rest is history. They was under captivity under the Assyrians. They was under the captivity of the Babylonians. They was under the captivity of the Persians. You go through that and try to keep your identity for hundreds of years at a time. And you try to keep your identity. Waiting for your God, a farce, to come save you. In the end, it was a Rothschild. That's in the end, it wasn't Yahweh or Jesus that saved them. It was actually a Rothschild who used his influence to get the state of Israel. But I digress. That's neither here or there. because they're doing crazy stuff as we speak, committing genocide and killing. Ugh, nasty stuff. But that has nothing to do with this video. We'll get into that this week, though. I just wanted you to know that what they wrote there was a young woman of marriageable age would bear a son, and his name would be Emmanuel. Nothing about a virgin. But who knows? Ariel comes over here all the time. Maybe Ariel's here. I think Ariel knows a little bit of Hebrew. But who knows? You can look these things up yourself. Now, I mentioned Copernicus. Copernicus. Well, this is the third Copernicus, right? This is the second. This is the son, Gaius Copernicus Piso, and this is the son, the adopted son. He became central figure in the chaos after Nero's death. Active during the year of the four emperors, arts and literature, like others in his family, he was well educated in rhetoric in Roman literature and considered part of the refined senatorial tradition. So here we have what I'm showing you, and I think I write it here. Why do I mention them? One, they were political royalty with the potential to have been affiliated with Titus, right? So I'm trying to make the connection here that Titus needed to not fail. His father left him in charge while he goes to Rome to be crowned a new emperor. If you were the son of Vespasian, wouldn't you want to have your father come back and you got the whole thing figured out? But what if you've been trying it your pop's way? What if you've been trying it his way, chasing these Sicarii all over? I mean, the Sicarii was escaping to Egypt. They would follow the Sicarii to Egypt and round them up and kill them there, right? So, but what you gonna do? You just gonna keep on like traveling all over? There got to be a better way. There got to be a better way, because when you go over here, they're gonna pop up over here. When you go back over there, they're gonna pop up over there. There got to be a better way to get this under control. How can you get this under control? If you infiltrate a psyop through their religion, that is why I think Christianity was created. It wasn't so much created as we see it now, right? Ask yourself this: why don't the Jews believe in Jesus? Riddle me that. Why don't the Jews? And they say, no, we believe in Jesus. That's just to patronize you. When I say believe in him, they are not obviously acknowledging him in their worship. Why isn't Jesus God to the Jews of today? It got quiet in here. I know I'm not going to get too many amens on this one. Why don't the Jews worship Jesus the Christ? We'll get back to it. Number two, they were talented writers. So here we have political royalty. Oh, hold on. Forgot to put this joint back on. Sorry about that. All right, let's start over because I didn't have my slides on. All right, so what we did find out about this Piso family is that they're very talented poets and philosophers and rhetoric masters, right? But not only are they just poets and philosophers and fairies, boy lovers. I don't know. That part is made up. I don't know if that. I wouldn't bet my money that they not boy lovers. Let's not get crazy. I would not bet my money that they are not boy lovers. But that has nothing to do with nothing. I'm just trolling you right now. But it is documented that they are philosophers, poets, rhetoric masters. Why? Also, they are politicians. So that's a connection right there. My question, simple and plain. Could they have been part of the conspiracy or plot to trick Jews into thinking Jesus was the Messiah to get them to become more docile and submissive to Caesar? Simple and plain. This is why I think they created the character of Jesus. Who could help Rome understand Jewish culture and law and prophecies? Josephus could. The Jewish commander Josephus is captured at Jotapata and defects, later writing pro-Roman histories. Shame. Shame! We already went over Isaiah. So in Isaiah's original Hebrew, it says, "Behold, the young woman is pregnant and shall bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel." That's what it says in the Hebrew Bible, Isaiah. That's what it says in the Hebrew Bible. The problem is you people are too emotional now, right? You want to move off emotion because you've been in the church all your life and your grandma. Guess what? You're not alone. You don't think my grandmother taught me Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior? You don't think my mother is somewhere? My mother would be appalled and ashamed if she heard my rhetoric right now. Because that's not how she raised me. But it doesn't matter about that. What matters is the truth. So you can raise someone and with good intentions, which they all had. They all had good intentions. But how much did they know? And their mind is not my mind. So I was born with a spirit to be a very inquisitive spirit, which they're going to tell you is that's a bad thing. You see how somebody tried to come in a second ago and say, well, they can trick me into nothing, bro. I'm asking questions I want answers to. Never mind all that tricknology stuff you talk about and I'm going to end up serving the Satan and all of that. No. Later for that. Answer my questions, bro. Answer my questions. Now, when I come back to you and I say, yo, here's a red pill and a green pill, which one you want? You're going to take the green pill every time. I don't want to know the truth. I know you don't. So get up out my live. I know you don't want to know. You don't want no parts of this truth. And here's the kicker. I don't want you to know the truth. I don't want you. You better off. How do I know you not struggling with fentanyl? Right? And Jesus, you believing in Jesus is the only thing that got you on fentanyl for like 3 weeks. Yeah, I'm going to take that 3 weeks as a win. Right? This teaching ain't for everybody. This is why they don't teach it to everybody. And this is why I don't mind when I got a real small views when I teach like this. If I want big views, I know exactly what to put in the title. Get 100 people over here, 200, 300 people over here real quick. And I know what to keep saying to keep them there. I know what to say to drive them out of here. You got to understand this about me by now. I know exactly what to say to keep people over here. If I was a piece of shit, I would just spin all of these people and I would have had 20,000, 30,000 people by now. Because I wouldn't have cared. But for some reason, I care about people knowing the truth. Because nobody else is going to do the research. There are some of us out here doing the research, right? And I represent those people. Because ignorance will keep you enslaved. That is what I do know. And these people have been trying hard to keep the truth from you. By golly, they've been trying hard. The Greek translation, the Septuagint, 3rd, 2nd BCE, when Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek, Alma was rendered as Parthenos. Parthenos normally means virgin, but can also mean young maiden. By the time of the early Christianity, Greek speakers mostly took Parthenos as virgin. So that's Greek's fault for out here translating shit that they had no business translating. Overly ambitious. Calm down. Greeks always is overly ambitious. I was listening to a guy today, and I was just so shocked at his ignorance, because he was out here saying, yo, they just discovered a tablet, a Sumerian tablet, where the mathematics was pre-Pythagoras. And he was so shocked. He was like, how would they know, how would they know this perfect mathematics? He said their mathematics was even better than Pythagoras. He was so shocked. He said, we've been lied to. No. Yeah, but why are you shocked? You know how you've been lied to? And not to make this a race thing, they told you that. This is why the world today, Nick Fuentes out here talking, the black man is an idiot, this, that, and the third. Yo, bro, what are you talking about? You sound crazy. Not only from ages ago have we been creating cultivation and irrigation, and even up until the freaking Zoom app, and like I could go to the traffic light and all this, but we keep inventing. Why you think they work so hard to make you think we idiots? That's all you see on the news. That's why I don't watch the news. You're going to see some black boy looking like an idiot, getting arrested. Mama, I love you. P.O.P. Hold it down. All that type of stupid shit. And they indoctrinate you to think that we are idiots and we're just naturally dangerous. I tell you what, let's swap. Not to make this a racial show, right? But I tell you what, white America, let's swap. Let's swap for 10 years. Let's swap for 10. No. We need 20 years just to get the indoctrination out of these people. Let's swap for 20 fucking years. And all of a sudden, all of the good jobs and salary go to black people. And then you take the black people where they at. You take their position in society. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The same fucking thing. Because you're human. And you're going to wild out. You're going to get upset at shit. And you're going to just... The same shit is going to happen. Maybe a tiny different flavor. Same shit. Anyway. Let's not worry about that, because everyone's going to about to get the chance to live through it, because they're erasing the middle class. Now, let's keep on with this right here. Greek translation, Jewish interpretation. Now, this was the original interpretation in the Jewish Bible. The prophecy was assigned to King Ahaz during the Syro-Ephraimite crisis. I'm not good with these words pronouncing them. Likely referred to a woman in Ahaz's court, possibly Isaiah's wife or royal woman, who would soon bear a child. The name Emmanuel symbolized reassurance. God is with us against enemies' kings. Not about a miraculous virgin birth, just a symbolic child in that generation. Right? But they done took that to create this whole new character. The birth of a Roman Messiah. After years of rebellion, the most dangerous opponents Roman faced in Judea were not just common rebels, but the Sicarii. I told you about the Sicarii. Sicarii is, that's a dagger, right? Dagger-wielding zealots who would rather die than submit to Caesar. Their ferocity climaxed at Masada, where they chose collective suicide over Roman rule. For a general like Titus, who leveled Jerusalem and destroyed the temple in 70 CE, brute force alone could never truly win the Jewish spirit. A psychological weapon was needed. This is where we must look at Titus's circle, right? These other politicians. Rome's literally, pardon me, let me slow down. Rome's literary and aristocratic elite. Families like the Pisons, who were known for their command of literature, philosophy, and political propaganda. The Piso family moved in the same orbit as Tacitus, Seneca, and other Roman thinkers who saw ideas as weapons. They understood that to break a people, you don't only destroy their walls, you rewrite their history. Well, guess what? What you think they've been doing to us, and they keep on doing to us. They keep rewriting our history. I expose that on this channel all the time. So what better way to tame the incurable Jewish zeal than to create a new story? A mythic savior who preaches peace, obedience, and turning the other cheek. Why is Jesus' temperament so different than Yahweh and they say they're the same God? Unless this God has schizophrenia. Because Jesus said spare the little children and Yahweh said kill all the children. And on that, I go to the chat. I want to see there. I want to see someone say, no, Yahweh never said that. Hold on. Hold on. Let's go to the chat, beloved. GM9 said this is real. GM9's here for it. Who's deleting their messages? Oh, Uncle Andy? Why'd you delete their messages, Uncle Andy? Don't say too much, Pretty Devon. They're not going to believe you. Chill. And they're going to think, chill, you wildin'. In increments. Uncle Andy said, me, I'm deleting them. Oh. Uncle Andy, he's out here wilding with his friends tonight. Yo. Well, Shalom. We got some Hebrews in the house. Peace. I learned that word just being on the internet. With the first time somebody told me Shalom, I didn't even know how to reply. I think you just say Shalom back. It's like a greeting of peace. Am I wrong? It's like a greeting of peace. Yo, GM9, you gotta come over here and you just gotta subscribe to the channel, bro. Right? Because we go through this, but I can't give it to you all in one night. Pause. That sounds crazy. But there's a lot to uncover, and I feel you have to be strategic when it's uncovered, right? This is why mystery schools have levels. This is why fraternities have levels, right? It's not about just getting into a place and just blurting out a bunch of stuff. It's about putting things in perspective. And this is, I could say a bunch of stuff up here. I purposely don't, because I want you to understand. Like, if you didn't get phase 1, there's no reason for me to jump to phase 2 for you, because you still don't got 1. Free Palestine. You already know that. Free Palestine. Already. All right. Let's get back to the teachings, bro. Let's get back to the teachings. All right. A child born of a virgin, divine miracle that could rival Jewish prophecy, right? So we trying to say, like, what better way to tame these Jews at the time? And the reason I went through this history is so that you could understand the political backstory, right? So when you put on these YouTube apologists and they want to prove to you so bad that, look, we have proof of the New Testament and the first of all, they don't, and we'll go to that in a second, but we're not going to jump the gun. They don't have proof. They are repeating what they heard from other people. That's what they have. They don't even have the original copies. They have copies of the original copies. It's crazy. But the Jewish zeal, they wanted to find out, how do we get them to change their, like, nothing is working. They'll rather die than to say that Caesar is Lord. Well, my theory is that they came up with a character. You could tell me they didn't, but your problem is you don't have no other historians talking about this guy. None. So you looking kind of weak there. Like, I don't even know if they really start talking about this guy until when. Second century. By then, obviously, they talking about him because they done created this character that was pushed out to try to get the Jewish people to. It had the opposite effect. The Jewish people just dodged that shit like a like Bo Jackson. Like Bo Jackson in the 80s, huh? Jewish people dodged that like Deion Sanders, baby. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. And the burden of that whole project was put on the rest of the world. So this was created by Romans, and then to this day, because of the effects that it actually had, it was able to bring in money. It was able to bring in obedience. It was be able to bring in submissiveness, cowardliness, docility. Oh, this is working like a charm. We're not getting rid of this. We never getting rid of it. Why would you get rid of that? Right? They out here talking about turn the other cheek. If someone slaps you, turn the other cheek. Yeah, all right. Would Yahweh do that? Yahweh was out here telling you to go kill people's kids, bro. Jesus is talking about suffer the little children. Yo, what? Who are you, bro? You was just talking some other shit a second ago. Just a second ago, you told me to go in there and murder everything moving and don't even leave nothing alive. That's what you said. Don't leave nothing alive. A child born of a virgin, divine miracle that could rival Jewish prophecy, yet whose message was to submit to earthly rulers. This is propaganda. This is Roman propaganda. Instead of another Sicarii with a dagger, Rome offered a Messiah with a cross, one who suffers quietly, pays taxes, and accepts Rome's authority as God's will. Seen this way, Christianity was not simply a religion, but a political invention, a literary masterpiece designed in the halls of Roman aristocracy to pacify rebellious province. Titus's military victory destroyed the temple, but the Piso family narrative victory planted a new temple in the minds of the people, and unlike stone stories, can rule forever. The myth of the first century evidence. Now we're going to get into some evidence. Now I gave you my theory about who created Jesus and why. It was Titus along with the Piso family. I think they worked it out. Titus would have to enforce it, and then they would be the brains behind it. Right? He would have to co-sign that. Christians often claim the New Testament goes back directly to Jesus, apostles in the mid-1st century CE. But here's the truth. No manuscript of the New Testament survives from the 1st century. Not one. So what I'm telling you is, no matter what they tell you, through the 1st century, 0, well, let's go 33. Never mind 0. 33 to 99, nothing. There's no evidence of no New Testament, of nothing. The oldest scraps of papyrus that scholars point to are from decades, even centuries later, and every date you hear from them is based on guesswork, paleographic style. Now, when you hear people like Wes Huff say, most scholars agree, or we agree, this is from, you know how they dated this? They would date stuff based on how the penmanship was. It wasn't based off ink or something, some carbon data. That's not what they did. They're basing stuff off of, okay, so the writing style is like this, so we're gonna say that this had to be during this century here. I don't know about you, but trying to backdate something 2,000 years ago, 17,000 years, 1,700 years, not 1,000, 1,700 years prior is wild, right? Especially, I'm going to tell you something, especially for you, white man. Now, I know you're saying, why are you getting racial again? I'm not. I just want to bring up a point in time when the Moors had to even help you out. Do you remember that time, or am I making this time up? Point out. Let me know if I'm making this up. But there was a point in time in Europe where you had lost all sophistication. All sophistication. I'm going to repeat that. There was a point in time in Europe where you lost all sophistication, and the Moors had to come in and help you out for like 700 years, bro. Got you back on your feet. You got universities back over there. right? And then now, some hundreds of years later, you out here telling people what happened in the first century. Yo, bro, if you huh? What are you talking about? What do you because we can compare. What are you comparing? You can compare when they told you to use soap and you was running around with the Black Plague. Compare that. Now you out here comparing shit, comparing people's penmanship, and going to tell these people, that was, these letters come from the had to be 50 CE. Word. So Paul's letters came from 50 CE. How you know this? I'm basing this off of how they was right. Yo, shut the fuck up, bro. Smack fire out you. You out here lying, bro. You don't know nothing about nothing. You repeat shit. That's what you do. And you take money from people who want the conversation and the narration to go one way or the other. That's what you do. That's what you good at. All these P's. You know, I sit here and listen to all these theologians and they start to talking, right? They talking about shit. I'm like, yo, when they start talking that P1 and P2, I don't like P1, P2. New Testament papyri are numbered. So the P's are for the papyrus, right? Here's what matters. None of them are dated by ink or carbon directly to the first century. Their dating comes from handwriting styles comparisons, which is subjective. Yes, very subjective. A scribe in 200 CE could write like one from 120 CE. So how do you say that the letters from Paul came from CE? This shit is a farce, y'all. But the way they overtalk and they got these organizations where they just overpower you. That's all, right? So they could set up a whole committee, call it some type of legitimate committee, right? Make it seem like they are verifiably some type of validated group of authorities on this, when all they really doing is learning rhetoric and repeating rhetoric, but in a way that would have someone else that doesn't have the confidence to feel like, oh, I can't really speak on this because they know more. No, they know more how to repeat what someone told them. Their dating comes from handwriting style comparisons, which is subjective. The earliest fragment hyped up is P52, a scrap of John's Gospel. Scholars place it anywhere between 125 and 175 CE. That's still nearly a century after Jesus' supposedly death, and even that range is only an estimate. All of that talk, and the closest your scribes could get outside of that bullshit Paul. We'll get to the Pauline letters in a second, though. Closest they getting is 125 CE. That's when they found these letters. Where'd they find them? But they really don't know. That's the thing. They don't know. They would have you sitting in church thinking like, as soon as Jesus died, his disciples got to writing and left all of these notes around. I'm going to keep it real with you. The Roman historians at that time, as I pointed out, didn't even know who the fuck these so-called disciples was. They called them some mischievous, mischievous new, forgot the word they used, but they didn't call them a religion. Called them mischievous. I knew they was talking about Gnostics. I knew they was talking about the Gnostics. The fuller manuscripts, we actually rely on the Codex Sinaiticus, right? So you always hear Wes Huff talk about, well, in the Codex Sinaiticus and all these other scholars, and the Codex Vaticanus. All of these is 4th century books of work. 4th century, by the way, is the century of 300. So anything 301, 302, 303, that's 4th century. The century is always a later. They're going to say, so 19th century is all 1800s. 20th century is all 1900s. So what I'm saying to you is, when you hearing all these people get on these platforms and they go into these schools and they listen, they rhetoric masters. They know how to just talk you right into ignorance. We've never heard these words. They've never used that type of religious jargon ever at your church. You go to church, you know how to clap your hands, stomp your feet, catch the Holy Ghost, say amen, which is a Egyptian term, but I digress. Give your tithes, right? Feel good. But Huey said something before. It's energy. So here's the thing. If you step into the house of worship and I come in with love and you come in with love and that person come with love and everybody on my pew got nothing but love and everybody on the back of my pew got nothing but love and everybody in front of me got I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to feel a spirit. You're going to feel something that you can't describe. What you're feeling is love. You're feeling a spirit, but you're feeling it more intense. Why? Because that person has the same spirit. That person has the same spirit. What I'm really saying is that person has the same frequency. Your body is a radio station that tunes to different frequencies. Literally, you can tune to different frequencies. If you really some species have different abilities than others because they know how to do it. But if you was to really know how to tune your frequency, you can change your physical matter, right? And that's when we call shapeshifters. Shapeshifters do exist. I digress. Let's get back to this right here. So we have all of these YouTube theologians now talking about these YouTube apologists that want to convince us that definitely the New Testament is real. How do we know? Well, duh. We have manuscripts written 300 years after the death of Christ. Who else would have manuscripts written 300 years after the death of Christ? I mean, how think about it for a second, Jamal. Don't be stupid. How would you get manuscripts 300 years after Christ if it wasn't true? Yeah, you're right. You make total sense. People are trying to figure out what happened 5 years ago during the pandemic. How hip-hop started 50 years ago. and they can't get it right, right? We just went through this. Shout out to Zeke Black. Me and Zeke Black have a show tomorrow morning on hip hop. There was just a 2-year CIA psyop where somehow a dumbass conversation got implemented by the CIA or the FBI, but my guess is the CIA, that Puerto Ricans didn't help the start of hip hop. It was all country bumpkin black people who came from the South. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. It was all watermelon selling. Yeah, and no Puerto Ricans or Jamaicans or nobody else had to do with anything of the influence. Alright. Then it got crazy, right? It was like, nah, hip hop started in Brooklyn. Alright, bro. Whatever, man. So if we can't get, my point is this. You can't even get what happened 50 years ago, right? You having a hard time finding out what the fuck actually happened 5 years ago with Fauci. And you're going to tell me you found some documents 300 years after the alleged creation, or my fault, death of Christ? Heard you. The Gospel of Matthew and the rest. Tradition says Matthew was written first, but the earliest physical copy of Matthew we actually have is P1, dated around the 3rd century CE. That's 200 years after the fact. The same goes for other Gospels. The material evidence arrived centuries later, long after the Roman Empire had every reason to shape the narrative. And this is what I tell you people. Listen, you guys, I told you already, Nazareth wasn't even a city. Don't try to look this up because they're just going to lie to you. I'm telling you the truth. Nazareth wasn't a city. That's another mistranslation. Jesus of Nazareth was a mistranslation. They meant to say Jesus of the Nazarenes. It got misquoted. Said Jesus of Nazareth. And next thing you know, they had to build a whole fucking town called Nazareth. Because people kept on going over there looking for Nazareth, and it was no Nazareth. Crazy. So Papyrus Run is dated to the 3rd century. 200 something. When people talk about papyrus evidence of the New Testament, they're really talking about fragments from long after the events, dated by handwriting guesswork, not science. There is no letter, no gospel, no original document from the actual 1st century. There's none. What we do have is tradition. What we do have is a tradition shaped, copied, and canonized under Roman control centuries later. Yes, till this day. To this day, Rome is still controlling the narrative. But it's gotten grotesquely worse. I mean, how many lawsuits are you going to have for touching little boys? What kind of cult is this? But I digress. Because I've been up here for 2 hours and 16 minutes and I got to keep on going. Roman literary frontline. When you step back, something becomes clear. The evidence for early Christianity doesn't come from fishermen or carpenters. It comes from Rome's own political class. The very people who stood to benefit from pacifying Judea are the ones who mention Christianity. Tacitus. His single reference to Christus reads more like a politician anchoring a narrative than a historian chasing the truth. He ties Jesus neatly under Pilate, the perfect way to root the story in Rome's legal authority. Suetonius calls Christians a mischievous superstition. He doesn't explain who they follow. He doesn't tell their story. He just labels them in passing as though to remind readers this strange sect really existed, keeping to the narrative alive. Josephus. Once a rebel commander, he surrendered to Vespasian and then reinvented himself as Rome's pet historian. His reference to Jesus called Christ drips with political utility and traitor propping up Rome's new mythology while erasing Jewish resistance. Together, these men form not a neutral chorus, but a Roman literary tag team, each adding just enough brushstrokes to keep the Jesus story in circulation without ever giving details that would invite scrutiny. Tacitus anchors it to Pilate, Suetonius normalizes it as no nuance, and Josephus lends Jewish credibility. It looks less like independent confirmation and more like a coordinated propaganda. A ruse reinforced by senators, secretaries, and turncoats, the very class that knew how to govern not just bodies, but beliefs. Bottom line, outside of Roman and Roman influence, Jewish sources, no other culture recorded Jesus during his lifetime or shortly after. These are the facts. Persia, India, what we know as China today, Northern Europe, all silent on Jesus. The only mentions we have are decades later by Romans, again, Tacitus, Suetonius, or Romanized Jews. All right, let's get to this Marcion, because this is another name that you're going to hear, because allegedly this Marcion was the one who edited the Pauline letters that they backdate to 50 CE. They say, oh, no, it has to be real. So the Pauline letters came before Matthew, did they? Well, when I heard this, I said, okay, first of all, who is this Marcion? Who wrote about him? Now, walk with me. 200 years later, you got this Irenaeus and Tertullian and Epiphanius. 200 years after the death of Christ, they're saying, and I feel like this, they're just saying this to give credence that they're giving credence to this new testimony, right? But the way they do it is genius. They say some guy from Turkey who was really a bishop's son who had money came to Rome, which could be true. And he used his influence to edit these Pauline letters. Most likely they were constructing an origin story for heresy. By inventing or exaggerating a figure named Marcion, they could explain away competing Christianity's groups who rejected the Old Testament, right? Show why the church had to create its own canon, because this Marcion, he was allegedly heavy into creating a canon. He wanted to canonize version of allegedly all of these different letters. But I already told you, I think these different letters were written by pseudonym politicians and wannabe playwrights and wannabe, right? It could have been a group of them. But once they got this story going, now we really have pages out here in different versions of these so-called disciples writing about Christ. There's really different versions out here. And everyone else is trying to get their version in. So at this point in time, you would have different letters maybe laying around. But they're not canonized yet. Meanwhile, you got Gnostics out here on the loose too. I don't know who taught these people stuff from the mystery schools, But you actually got Gnostics out here really believing like, yo, I am the truth, the way, the truth, and the light, right? They talking all that vibration stuff and all that whole tap. Yeah, they was talking that back then. Oh no, Rome didn't like that. We got to get rid of y'all. All that brother polite talk. Yeah, we got to get rid of y'all. He was the son. This Marcion was the son of a wealthy ship owner in Sinope. That's Turkey, I believe. Around 140 CE, he arrived in. So 140 CE. All right. So that is approximately 100 years after the death of Christ. He arrives in Rome, donated money to the church, then was excommunicated. I don't know if there even was a church back then. That's the thing. He rejected the Old Testament and created his own canon. But I'm giving you the church version. I'm giving you the church version of this Marcion. I don't think this guy existed. There was no official church in Rome at that time. So the story goes like this. Paul allegedly wrote letters in 50 CE. There were the 50s somewhere. Marcion allegedly edited them 90 years later. What? Irenaeus and others allegedly preserved the Orthodox versions. The early surviving copies we actually have is P46 200, dated back to 200 CE. Does any of this story add up to you guys? They keep telling you bullshit, and you hyped up in the spirit, and you loving the fact that you love the story, so you don't want to denounce the story. Right, you don't want no parts of. You like dressing up, going to church on Sunday. If you like it, I love it. Sunday. The church tells you that there was a guy in history that edited the Pauline letters. And yet, there's nothing else about this guy. They tell you he was a bishop's son. There was no church at the time of his father. There was no church. His father was bishop of what? They just tell you anything. Let me go to the comments for a second. See what's going on. Michael Wood was in the house. Paul and Peter met Mary and became a band. A band? Now, when you look up what a bishop was, because they say his father was a bishop, here's the thing. You're going to find out they're going to say, okay, so the bishop actually meant something different back then. like an elder. Like, okay, so if it meant something different, then why are we, here's the thing, don't use words that we are associated with now, because that's tricknology. If you tell me that Marcion's father was a bishop, you know damn well how I'm looking at that. I'm looking at it like, okay, his father had a position within the church. It's kind of hard to have a position in the church, and the church is not established yet. So why are you calling this man a bishop? Are you trying to confuse me? Are you trying to throw me off? But you're going to move the goalposts anyway and tell me, well, they used bishop back then, and it's not what you, it's not, it doesn't mean what it meant today. Well, then don't use it. That's a poor choice of words. That's a poor choice of words. Tricknology is for real, Uncle Andy. Michael Wilbur said, I wake up every morning and see God in the mirror. Peace, God. Peace, God. Peace, God. James says, God is not who you think he is. I know that's right. My God is. But God may not be who these people think their God is. My God is exactly what I think it is. Let's keep going, man. There's holes all through this thing. And you know what's sad? This religion has been used for no good other than to control people, to molest little boys, to take advantage of the poor. To this day. Start wars. To this day. What I left out this video is I did not go past a certain point. So if I went up to 300, I didn't go past. Meaning I didn't get into Constantine in this video. We could do that another time. We'll get into all the edicts, and we don't even need to do that this video. There's no rush. We understand. Most of us can tell you about the Edict of Milan and the Nicene Council. Most of us, you understand, we're familiar with the Nicene Council. So at this point, that's like barbershop talk. That's like low-hanging fruit, right? But what we're not familiar with is what these so-called theologians and YouTube scholars get up here, and they're able to just spew off these things, and they have a knowledge because they went to the institutions. So we give them credence until we find out, wait, what you talking is bullshit though, bro. What you talking could be easily debunked. What you talking could be easily debunked. The earliest surviving copy of P46 is 200 CE. So let's see what we're missing here. No first century manuscripts. I'm going to stand confident on that. No independent Roman or Jewish record of Paul's letters existing. No detailed provenance, original story of how the letters we now call Paul were discovered, preserved, or transmitted. Every time I try to track that down, I can't really find out. Other than you telling me that Marcion was the one who edited them. But then I say, all right, after he edited them, who found them? They just appeared. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Who you talking to? They just appeared, bro. If they just appeared, why did you canonize them? What are you talking about? Oh, y'all really trying to run game. The first real physical evidence shows up after Rome already had motive and control to shape the canon. I think I stopped there. Y'all really trying to run game on me right now? Now, and I'm glad I had to do this show. Had to. And I'm glad it's over with, because we've done the Old Testament now, right? We've done the New Testament now, and now we're going to have a scholar joining us this week. I would advise you. So I'm going to try to set it for Wednesday. Here's the thing, though. He is better off in the morning. So I know all of y'all can't watch and participate in the morning. Right? So we're going to do the show in the morning. I think we're going to do it Wednesday. If you can, try to be in the house. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to set it for like 11:30 Wednesday morning. Michael Wilbur says he's not available. Yo, Mike, man. I'm trying my best here, Mike. It would have been today, right? But I felt like I had to finish this part 2. Had to get this out the way. Finish part 2 so that we get the portfolio nice and neat. So now we got stuff about the Old Testament, and we getting new subscribers all the time, which to me, I don't see you as a subscriber. If you come into the Poker Face Society, I see you more than a subscriber, right? Everyone over here doesn't have to like believe what I believe, right? I'm about truth, right? But I still give people room to be who they're going to be. I only kicked old boy out earlier because he is a faithful Christian, right? And I just didn't want like that on my neck. I do want him over here, but not while we talking about this, right? Because again, I don't know if I mention something that start making sense. He starts questioning his God. His whole life starts to unravel. You understand? I'm driving down 80. Who's on the side of the highway smoking crack while trying to do some fentanyl hits? Him, right? I pull over. Yo, what the fuck is going on, yo? Nah, I was listening to your show. You really make sense, Saladin. You really starting to make sense. You understand? Like a lot of people. Yo, are you smoking crack, bro? What happened? Like, if my sense is going to make you do, like, something crazy, I don't want you listening to anything I got to say. So what I'm saying is, if Jesus gives you hope, if Jesus makes you a better person, then I need you to listen to Jesus. Simple and plain. Simple and plain. If Jesus makes you a better person, listen to Jesus, not me. Fuck you listening to me for? Shit. Please. I do this for my people who want what actually happened, Saladin. Like, I get it. Don't worry. I'm a big boy. I'm a big girl. I could take it. What actually happened? This is what actually happened, y'all. Right? That's what I do this for. Not to try to prove to you I don't got nothing else to offer you. I don't got no God to replace to fill that void. And trust me, that is a big void to fill when you don't have. I've been through this already. So I know exactly what you would go through. To take that out your life, you don't have nothing there. You're like, damn, That should affect you. I did eventually replace it after I had understood everything. And you want to know something? My God is probably not that different from you, yet my God has no name. It's not a human. It is the epitome of love. It is a frequency of love. It does exist because I feel it and you feel it. So it does exist. And when you are one with the Spirit, you will know what to do. You will know what we call right and wrong. There's no way you could see someone hungry and you have extra to give and not give that person when that spirit is on you, right? There's no way you're going to treat a child and do something to a child that would harm that child, put that child in harm's way when that spirit is on you. And that spirit is with you. The only thing is, your God, they told you if they smack you in your cheeks and box you in your face, that you're supposed to be like, all right, here's my other here's my other cheek, please. Do as you will. That's the only thing. My God would never tell me no foolishness like that. In all actuality, my God told me there's a time for love and there's a time for war. There's a time for peace and there's a time to kill. You understand? So if you box me in my face, I suggest that I hope it's the best boxer you got of your life. You understand? Because I'm on bullshit time after that. Alright. That's enough. That's enough for tonight. The dread. Let me read the dread. The dread says, I would like at least 3 different meanings of the word city. Just saying. Dread, when did I say, I read your comment, but when did I say city? Was I saying, because I wasn't looking at, here's the thing, Dread, I wasn't looking at the comments when you made that comment, right? I'm just going off the flow, and then every, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I tried to come back to the comments to see what you, so I don't even know what part of the slides that I was talking about that where I said city. Just giving the dread some time to type before I get out of here and go into bed with my wife. Quinn says, nice. They'll be here. Michael Wilbur says 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Yeah, Wednesday. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to email him right now. Set it up. It's going to be exciting because he got a book out already. Yeah, Uncle Andy. Replay gang is getting taxed, but I'm going to leave this one alone, so they're going to be able to see this one. But starting next week, members only everything. All right, the dread is here. All right, Huey. Huey says it's time to watch the game. All right. I'm getting out of here anyway, Huey. So I just wanted to wait for the dread. Some people do not have that inner voice. They hear nothing when they read, for instance. Just saying. That's true. It depends what they're reading. I don't believe that you could read Proverbs, certain proverbs, and don't feel nothing. Like you don't feel nothing. right? Get in the silent place. Get in the silent place, right? Now you have to understand reality. What is reality? Electromagnetic energy is reality. That's not a farce. That's not subjective. Right? That's not subjective. Yahweh is subjective. The electromagnetic energy is dead ass. A fact. So what I'm really saying is the more you understand about yourself. My grandfather used to say this thing. He said, you can't be so heavenly minded that you know earthly good. Some people could run around, they could tell you everything in their religion, but then they can't tell you nothing how their anatomy works. Understand? They don't know how the sun affects their melanated skin, right? How the photons affect your body. They don't have no idea what's going on and how their own body is creating a electromagnetic radiancy. We didn't even get into the Earth's field yet. We just talk about yours. But the more you start to understand about yourself, never mind all this stupid ass rap music, soap operas, freaking Instagram reels, TikTok, that's all going to take up time where you could be learning about yourself. Because the more you learn about yourself, if you did that, now you know, even if they locked you in the cell, that all is energy. Now, what you must do is create your field of energy, your desired field of energy. Because the energy around you may be perturbed. So what you have to do is create your desired field of energy, and that may take you some time to create. So you have to sit in what we call meditation and create that. That's number one. Number two, because now that you just changed the frequency with what I just told you to do, and then you open up this here. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? So words have frequency. Words have frequency. But if I try to give you these words about love right after you get smacked in the face by somebody and you coming upstairs hot, well, you on a different frequency, first of all. So me, and it's overpowering me trying to read whatever is in here. Like, yo, listen, young blood, Jesus wept. You don't want to hear nothing about that Jesus wept bullshit. You trying to go for your gun and go back downstairs and hurt something. You understand? So my answer to you, when you say some people read and don't feel nothing, some people may not even be in the right frame of mind. You trying to read the Bible with scissor playing in the back. Okay. She's talking sexually explicit things, and you trying to combine that with this. It ain't never gonna work. It ain't never gonna work. Get in a place of silence. Get in a place of silence. Which means you will have to change your atmosphere. Now, this is good, what I just told you. It'll help you, but it will only help you to a degree on this planet and in North America. Because in North America, you need money to operate. So, I can give you game on how to change, to calm down, change your frequency. If you don't got no money, it's going to create another frequency called anxiety. Because if you don't have no money, somebody next to you got anxiety. If you don't, You could be in a state of delusion. Like, yo, don't worry about it. God got everything under control. Check this out, man. Your girl don't want to hear nothing about that bullshit. Neither does your mom or whoever you living with. All they want to know is, when are you bringing her in some fucking money so we could pay these bills? That's it, bro. You understand? So don't think because you understood how to change your frequency and I taught you all of that this shit ain't working. All right, tell me what's going on in your life. Well, I'm kind of fucked up right now. All right, let's stop right there. Figure out how to get unfucked. You kind of fucked up right now. Fix that, my boy, because this is going to be a problem. And you're going to revert right back to that state of conscious, like that state that you was in. Even if you came out of it for a second because you meditating, you got the frankincense going. Yeah. That's good for however long you sit in that meditative state. But should you really be meditating right now instead of finding a job? I don't know. That's up to you. What I do know is the moment you stop meditating, them goddamn bills gonna hit you like a brick in the face. What am I saying? Things got to be balanced. That's what I'm saying. And you still good. All right. So that being said, Uncle Andy is a member. Oh, okay. So the Dread was wondering about me saying you said city of Nazareth, right? So you're focused on city. What do you want to focus on? Place? There was never a place called Nazareth. Is that better for you? Whatever you think a tradition, you wanted three different. I'm not giving you three different meanings of a city, bro. There was never a place called Nazareth. There was never a place called Nazareth. I can tell you what there was. There was a people called the Nazarenes and the Nazarites. That is what it was. There was a people called the Nazarenes and the Nazarites. So whether you want to call it a metropolis, whether you want to call it a city, whether you want to call it an area, whether you want to call it a place, none of it. There was none of it. None of it. They had to create it. Don't worry about the nuances of the grammar of the word and definitions of city. That's not where your meat and potatoes of this knowledge is coming from. The meat and potatoes is coming from the fact that they made a mistake. So now you have to ask yourself, Dread, who was the Nazarenes and the Nazarites? Now you are a Dread. Go look those people up, because that's where their mistake was. Bro, there was no Nazareth. So Jesus of Nazareth, they misspoke. They wanted to say Jesus the Nazarene. Jesus the Nazarene. And the Nazarene was a different group of people. They were a group of people, just like the Essenes. So you had the Nazarenes and you had the Essenes. And sometimes they would compare the Nazarenes and the Essenes as if they were the same group, but they weren't the same group. So your homework, Dread, is to go look up the Essenes. Dread, I want you to look up the Essenes, Essene, and the Nazarenes. And then you will now know why they made the mistake. Once you figure out who those peoples was, then you say, oh, okay, now I see why they said Jesus of Nazareth. All right. So I don't think I got the game, but I'm still getting out of here. All right. Let's see. The terminal list. Dark Wolf is on Beyond You. Is it? It'll be on there in 5 minutes anyway, because when I get off of here, it'll be up there. Let's see. Tulsa King season 3, first episode up there. Gods of War is up there. What else? Something to Nothing is up there. They lived in Judea. They lived in the same region. That's why people sometimes have gotten them confused. I doubt Jesus is. I doubt Zeus is from Nazareth, but sounds cool. All right, y'all. Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Be here with your questions. I'm gonna reach out to our guest now, and if he doesn't confirm or any changes, then I would like I'll let y'all know tomorrow. All right. All right. Let me get on that Beyond You TV. Go ahead and check that out. Yeah. I'm gonna go through my I know the book that originally where I learned that from. And it wasn't David Icke. David Icke confirmed it later on when I read one of his books. But by the time I read David Icke's book, I had actually learned it through another book that I got in the mystery school. So I'm just not telling you something that hasn't been corroborated. It's not going to be well known because how many people are going to go against the Pope? Right? You don't got that many people going against the main story. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my original book. I'm going to find it for you. And David Icke got so many books out, and I heard him re-say it, but I think I could find him also corroborating that. But I already know what I know. Nazareth wasn't there. There's so many things. There's so many holes in things, but they have to keep the story together. So it's not like you just gonna find it by Googling it. GM9, just subscribe to the channel, blood. Don't worry. Everything you talking about, we already talked about over here, GM9, and we continue to talk about. So I think you're gonna be in a good place over here. But we talk about this all the time. From time to time, we get into politics, and then we'll bounce back into religion. Then we might talk about aliens. You understand? But I had to do this show to knock this out. So I catch y'all on Wednesday. You might catch me tomorrow, because tomorrow I might be on Israeli time and politician time. So you might catch me tomorrow. But Wednesday, we back on New Testament time. Holla at your boy.